foothills of the regular season and into the playoffs, where your first wrong step might be your last. Only one group of men will proudly take their place atop the mountain and be called champions of the world.
Hello and welcome to GameSpot's 2004 Pigskin Preview. I'm Jeff Gersman, your host and guide for today's look at all of the top football games that'll be hitting stores just in time for the 2004 season. We'll be bringing you multi-platform reports on EA's Madden NFL 2004 and Sega's ESPN NFL Football. Then we'll check out 989 Sports PlayStation 2 exclusive NFL Gameday 2004, followed by Microsoft's own Xbox exclusive NFL Fever 2004. Finally, we'll leave you with a brief look at Midway's NFL Blitz Pro. We'll hear from the developers who worked on the games, then get scouting reports from GameSpot's own NFL experts to hear what they have to say. So without any further delay, let's get started with Madden NFL 2004. It's been 14 years since the start of the most recognizable football franchise, and John Madden's game is bigger than ever. Madden NFL 2003 became last year's best-selling football game by a wide margin, but the developers at Tiburon aren't just sitting around and pumping out a half-hearted roster update as a new game. Madden NFL 2004 appears to be making a number of significant enhancements. But are they just adding bells and whistles? We met with Jeremy Stausser, senior producer of Madden NFL 2004, to find out.
It's all about innovating in gameplay for us. And we also want to just blow people away with depth, with new owner mode type features in our franchise mode. One of our new features in-game in that gameplay is going to be playmaker control. It's a whole new way to play the game. It's an innovative way using the right analog stick on the controllers. And it's going to be a whole new way to call for blocks, to direct your receivers, to kind of get an early read, to switch the play before the play is snapped. And it's a whole new way to play the game. So you're going to see a lot of that, but you're also going to see a pretty big online presence on the PS2 Online. We launched it last year. We learned a lot of things, and you know, from that, we're able to add a whole slew of new features this year that we think the hundreds of thousands of people who used it last year will like, and hopefully a whole new group of people will like as well. We've made it easier to match up and play somebody, and we've kind of given a whole new mode online with tournaments and some persistence online, so you can go play one game, come back a couple days later, play the next game in your tournament, and move and advance on. So we learned a lot last year from online play, so we added ways to quickly meet up and match up and play online. We added ways to communicate better with voice chat using a USB headset, and we've added ways to interact with other people online, leaving them messages and using the EA Messenger system. And it's going to be we've added a whole new dearth of features to online this year. Obviously, with GameCube, we have a lot of Nintendo-specific features in interacting with other Nintendo hardware, such as the Game Boy Advance, and we're looking at some very exciting things there. The Xbox allows us to do a lot of specific things using the hard drive to cache the game for faster loads and being able to rip songs for a custom soundtrack in the game.
Williams. Touchdown, Miami.
Now, this is exactly how to get the ball in the end zone. Just get in behind the center and guard and keep pushing and pushing until they're putting up 6 points in the board.
Madden NFL 2004 is the first football game scheduled for release this season on the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, PC, and Game Boy Advance on August 12th. While it certainly sounds like the team at EA Sports has added quite a bit to Madden NFL 2004, let's check out what Sega and Visual Concepts have put in this year's ESPN NFL Football. Previously known as NFL 2K4, the series has undergone an ESPN facelift in an attempt to gain awareness for a series that some critics say was the best series on the market last year. We talked with Jeff Thomas, the Vice President of Sports Development at Visual Concepts, to find out what's been added to this year's game, and here's what he had to say.
The original one on the Dreamcast, things have just changed, throughout the years. So we've continued to add and strive to add more and more features every year, and this year is just unbelievable. We've added a ton of new things like first-person football and the crib and some of the other cool features that we had this year. But, also just our relationship with ESPN has continued to grow, and that has had a great impact on our game.
The worldwide leader in sports.
First-person football making it was just it was hard. That's the best way to sum it up. It really was. We put key resources here at this company on it this year throughout the whole development cycle. And, you know, things have been done in the past where they put a camera in a helmet. It's not about that. It's nothing like that. It's about a whole mode. It's a completely different experience. It puts you under the helmet throughout the whole time you're playing, and it just really is more than a camera. It's more than just putting a camera in a helmet. It's about the tweaks to gameplay. It's about the balancing of how you have to play when you play this way, and all the tricks that are done to give you more perception of what's going around you, what's going on in front of you. Those were the challenges with first person, and it just took a really long time to get that balance and make that happen. And crib is another whole world of the game. It's something removed from the game of football. It's something fun. It's something that you can just kind of do on the side, and it automatically happens for you, which is another key part of it. You know, it kind of just goes about its business behind the scenes, and when you want to go check it out, you can see what you've gotten. It's really easy interface, so you don't have to turn things on and manipulate things to get this to happen. It happens behind the scenes, and when you're ready, you can go into your crib and see all the great things that you've acquired. There's over 1,500 unlockable things in there. Also, in addition, this year on the PS2, we're just bringing you tons of new online leagues and tournaments and ladders, all at ESPNVideogames.com. They're all going to be user definable, so you're going to be able to go in here and you know, design your tournament or your ladder or your league play. We have season play online, so you can decide who can come and play. And after the games are all over, all the statistics are dropped to the online site as well, so everything's constantly updated.
15, 5, touchdown!
Touchdown, Buccaneers!
ESPN NFL Football is currently scheduled for release September 2nd for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. While ESPN NFL Football and Madden NFL 2004 are looking like they're ahead of the pack, Microsoft and the team working on NFL Fever 2004 for the Xbox are hoping to convince football fans otherwise. Third game in Microsoft's own NFL franchise, the primary focus of this year's game is to let the players play the game they want to play it, which basically means you'll be given a variety of options to select from when you're creating a player profile. To tell us more about these features and what else NFL Fever 2004 has to offer, let's turn to Rick Neal, program manager of the game.
We really concentrated on giving a broad, sweeping upgrade to the whole game this year, from gameplay all the way to graphics. So you'll see pretty much all the graphics in the game be different this year, and we'll also be taking it to different levels of gameplay that we never had before. We're adding 3 new passing modes. Well, 2 new passing modes. We have the conventional 1-button mode, and we've added trigger mode and lead and read passing, which is a great game innovation this year. So conventionally you pick the receiver, hit the yellow button to pass to the yellow receiver, and this year we've added a trigger mode where you choose the receiver and then you use the trigger to, because it's an analog trigger, it allows you to have different depths of passes, so you can really get a lob off and you can have a feel of a bullet class on that. And then lead and read is a new way of, we like to think about passing. It's not really throwing to the receiver, it's throwing to a place on the field. So you can actually have your receiver break off his route and accommodate for where you're throwing the ball. So really what you're doing is on-the-fly pass route adjustments. And an extended of that is we have a broken route play where if the quarterback's in trouble, you can hit your left trigger and the receiver will run back to where you're going to throw the ball. So basically, hey, I'm in trouble, get me out of this sack, I want to get the ball off. There's global AI adjustments that affect offense and defense, and in defense now I can take my best linebacker and put him on the best running back so that you're not going to have personnel mismatches, and as well as just making the defense a lot more fun to play than it ever has been.
Jolted. He caught it. Touchdown, Garner.
Good pattern, good throw, and 6 points on the board.
NFL Fever 2004 is currently scheduled for release exclusively for the Xbox on August 26th. The next football game in our roundup is 9 Sports NFL Gameday 2004, which will be available exclusively for the PlayStation 2.
In the toil of summer, with its sweat, tears, and blood, these men begin their journey, thinking of the formidable mountain they must climb.
Gameday 2004 will feature a completely new graphical engine designed to give a much more realistic look and feel to the series. The lighting and texturing effects throughout the game stadiums have been totally redone, and the character models have also been retooled with brand new facial maps and new overall body design. Gameday 2004 also aims to beef up the series with a number of new gameplay features, most notably in the realm of playbooks and play calling. The number of playbooks has been greatly increased, going from 12 in last year's game to about 36 this year. Most impressively, the game will also give you the ability to use a peripheral headset in the PlayStation 2 version that's not just for online chat, but also for voice recognition during an offline game. NFL Gameday 2004 is set for release on August 26th for the PlayStation 2, and you'll also find a PlayStation 1 version available on August 12th.
Blake throws to the middle. Jones pulls it in. Touchdown Cardinals!
Finally, let's take a quick look at Midway's NFL Blitz Pro, the first NFL Blitz game to feature simulation-styled gameplay.
Game time.
Midway's long-running NFL Blitz football series has always been fun, but Midway has become increasingly concerned that true football fans aren't taking it seriously. That's why this year's Blitz trades in many of the old game's more outlandish rules in favor of something that's a bit truer to real NFL football. For instance, first downs now require 10 yards instead of 30. A full 11-man team will be on either side of the ball, and you'll even have to kick your own extra points now rather than letting the automatic kicker handle your business. But while the game may be shooting for a slightly more authentic depiction of the sport of football, that doesn't mean you'll be seeing penalties or anything crazy like that. As far as the gameplay goes, NFL Blitz Pro appears to stick pretty closely to the formula, letting you dive into receivers well before the ball even touches their fingertips. Like the more recent console versions of Blitz, the game contains an icon-based passing system. The play calling menus have been redesigned as well, and they currently look and function a bit like the standard Madden play calling system. While the game will be available on all three current generation console platforms, only the PlayStation 2 version will feature the game's extensive tournament-based online mode. The top players in standard online play will move up to a more elite tournament mode, and games and tournaments will continue until a top player has been established. NFL Blitz Pro is currently scheduled for release on September 29th for the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube.
The throw. Touchdown, Minnesota. Byron Chamberlain. Nice work on that touchdown there, Gator.
Well, now you know the basics, and you've heard what most of the companies have to say about their own games. But now it's time to check in with GameSpot's own football experts to see what they have to say about the upcoming releases.
The owner mode is probably the biggest addition to this year's Madden game. Basically, it lets you take absolute full control of a team right down to how much you charge for tickets, how much you charge for hot dogs or nachos, things like that, how much you charge for merchandise. It also gives you like a look at, how's your fan base? Do you need to lower ticket prices to get more fans to come in? You'll get advice from people telling you what you need to do to get fans to come back in if your team is not all that great. There's also things you can do where you can promote some of the assistant coaches up to head coach. You can promote trainers. You can do all sorts of things. It really adds another level of depth that just hasn't been there in console football games before.
Yeah, I mean, with Madden owner mode, it's kind of crazy because, you can do all kinds of weird stuff with the ticket prices and all that stuff. And I think, where I saw it just be completely crazy was when I could see that I could change the price for a hot dog. That's kind of cool. At the same time, it's kind of weird.
Also, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by this year's game, just the owner mode, everything, the playmaker stuff, there's a lot of helpful videos actually available in the game itself that will kind of give you a brief run through as to how to use everything and get you to feel a little bit more comfortable with all the new features it has to offer.
The core of Madden 2004 seems to be there. I haven't personally been a big fan of the series, but it definitely feels a lot like last year's game, and they have a lot more this year. It's hard to argue with what Madden brings to the table. They just got tons of stuff, so we'll see how it all turns out for people like Madden. The back-end stuff that they did add for ESPN, NFL football, I kind of dig it. The crib, it seems kind of like more my speed, where it's like I'm just playing football, and then at the end of the game, this thing pops up, and it's like, oh, go check this out. I can kind of deal with that. It's pretty much kind of just an extra to playing football. So I kind of like that approach.
One of the things that had been absent from the 2K games is coach challenges. Madden's had it for a couple of years now. Most of the other games have pretty much managed to implement it in some fashion. So this year, ESPN has coach challenges, and it works pretty well. So, you know, to enact a coach challenge, you just hit the start menu. It's a selectable thing, like, you know, timeouts or anything like that. And once you select the coach challenge, your coach will throw down the red flag, and the ref will go look in the box, you know, take a look at the play. And, you know, you can challenge all the same stuff you can challenge in the NFL, you know, position of the ball, you know, was the guy out of bounds or not, you know, is it a touchdown or not, all that sort of thing.
You know, with first-person football, you know, a couple games have tried to do similar things in the past. You know, they try to say that it's all about this big, huge mode that's, you know, an experience. In the end, you're still playing the game, you know, from a first-person view. You know, the bullet time thing, kind of neat, kind of interesting. Once again, I think it's kind of an extra thing that I'm probably not going to do a whole lot with. You know, I've kind of always been a fan of the 2K series. I was a little, you know, weirded out with the whole name change and seeing that come about, but in all honesty, you know, being a 2K fan, it's easy to see that ESPN, especially in the near final build that we have, is very close to what the series has always been. So I think fans of previous 2K games have a lot to look forward to with ESPN.
ESPN NFL football is looking like a fantastic game. It's probably going to come out later, probably be the latest one to come out this year. It's coming out in September as opposed to all the other ones which are pretty much coming out in August. But it seems like it'll be worth the wait. Sega and Visual Concepts have done an amazing job just updating the game, not taking out anything that made last year's game great and just upgrading and, you know, adding more and more to the game.
Xbox Live has always been an important part of Fever. When it was released last year, that was sort of the big deal. This year it's equally important, but Microsoft has added XSN. XSN will allow players to basically form their own leagues so they can compete against each other and, you know, see who's top dog in a certain group of people. You get detailed stats on each of the players that are competing in the league. You get an idea of how many running plays they do execute during a game, how many passing plays, what kind of yardage they get, you know, what's the score in their games. There's all sorts of other little cool stuff too, like if you don't show up to a game on time or if you disconnect, you get a lower player rating. So when someone's going up against you, you know something scandalous is going on. Maybe that person's not a reliable person to play against. NFL Fever has always sort of been the underdog in terms of it being kind of a new series. The development team has to prove itself among the big boys, Madden and ESPN. You know, their first two efforts, they're solid efforts. I mean, you know, there was obviously a lot of room for improvement. This year, it seems like the development team has really taken an opportunity to improve the game and, you know, help it, you know, compete with the big boys.
Gameday 2004, you know, we saw the game at E3. We haven't seen a whole lot of it since then. The one thing that it does seem like they have done is they have cleaned up the player models a fair amount. I mean, it still does look like Gameday, which is not really a good thing, but I mean, the animations are better. It does seem to run a little smoother. The players animate just in general a lot better, and they don't look so bad. Last year, Gameday probably had one of the best online setups, and this year they're doing something similar to XSN with this 989 Sports Network thing. It's basically the same idea with, you know, a website where you can kind of track stats and do all that fun stuff that XSN is doing, though not as much. You know, we haven't really had the chance to play it online, so it's hard to say at this point whether it's going to be great or if it's going to be garbage, but, you know, it sounds like they're trying to do some better stuff with it this year. One of the big things that they were talking about for Gameday 2004 at E3 was that they were going to, obviously it would have online voice support, but they were also talking about having voice support in the game, like just in the normal game. We have confirmed that the voice recognition stuff is in the game this year. We haven't had a whole lot of time to play around with it. It seems somewhat functional. It seems to kind of do what you tell it to do, so it's there. NFL Gameday 2004 is going to be Gameday through and through. I mean, if you're a big fan of the Gameday series, you know, despite whatever the critics say, then, you know, you're probably going to like what 2004 has to offer you. But, you know, if you weren't into the series before, it's hard. It seems like it's going to be pretty rough for anyone to suddenly just jump into that series and love it. So.
Well, there you have it. That's our look at this year's football games. Hopefully you have a better idea of what each has to offer. If not, please be sure to consult each of the game spaces for the full-length versions of the interviews seen here, as well as the latest preview coverage. For the final word on each title, be on the lookout for full reviews of the games right around the time of their release. For GameSpot Live, I'm Jeff Gerstmann. Thanks for watching.